students, welcome to the video session, and today we are going to learn the play The Happy Prince, written by Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde was an Irish poet and playwright. After writing in different forms throughout the 1880s, the early 1890s saw him become one of the most popular playwrights in London. Now let us go through the summary of the play. The Happy Prince was written by Oscar Wilde and remains among his popular works till date. The story begins with a lone swallow who decides to rest on a beautiful statue of the Happy Prince before flying south for the winter. When alive, the prince was sheltered from pain, misery, and poverty and knew nothing of it. However, now that he has a bird's eye view of the city, he weeps at the sorrow and suffering of his people. He begs the swallow to pluck out the gemstones that decorate him and to strip away the gold that beguiles him and to distribute these riches among the poor. The swallow is shocked at first, but agrees to help the prince. As the prince's statue loses its sheen, the people of the city becomes happier. Both he and the swallow are content in the knowledge that they were helping people. But by this time, winter has set in, and the swallow is fighting a losing battle against the cold weather. Overcome by sickness, she dies at the prince's feet. That moment, from the grief-stricken statue, resounds a loud cry. The prince's own heart has broken at the loss of his dear friend. The story is marvelous for its ability to use a talking statue and a bird to tell readers about the virtues of kindness, compassion, and sacrifice. While the prince sacrifices his riches and finery, the swallow pays the ultimate price by sacrificing her own life willingly. By portraying the gap between the rich and poor, the writer holds up a mirror to society, making us question our attitude towards those who are less fortunate than us. The writer also throws light on the pretense behind grand appearances. When he is dressed in fine jewels, the prince stands for little more than pomp and splendor. Ultimately, the statue's existence becomes meaningful only when he is old, dull, and grey. Now let us read and understand the lesson.
Night falls over the city of Paris and all is peaceful. Or is it? As the Happy Prince looks over the city, he sees a different picture. High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was covered all over with thin leaves of fine gold. One cold winter's night, a little swallow landed on the prince's statue. Just as the swallow put her head under her wings to sleep, a large drop of water fell on her. Then another drop fell. The eyes of the Happy Prince were full of tears, which were now running down his golden cheeks. The little swallow was filled with pity. "Why are you crying?"
"I used to be the Happy Prince. When I was alive and had a human heart, I didn't know what tears were. I never cared for what lay beyond the high walls of my palace. Now that I'm dead, they have placed me here, so I can now see all the ugliness. And though my heart is made of lead now, I cannot help but weep. Far away in a little street, I can see a thin, tired woman seated at a table. Her little son has a fever, but his mother has nothing to give him. little swallow, will you help me?
Winter is quickly setting in, and I must fly to Egypt where it will be warm. All my friends are flying towards the Nile.
But the happy prince looked so sad that the swallow agreed to help him.
My eyes are made of rare sapphires. Pluck out one of them and take it to the woman. She can sell it, buy some medicine, and cure her son.
I can't do that.
But the prince insisted. So the swallow plucked out one eye from the statue and flew to the poor woman's house. She hopped in and laid the sapphire beside the woman's sewing. Then she gently fanned the boy's forehead with her wings.
It's strange, but I feel warm now, though it's really very cold.
The next day, the swallow prepared to fly to Egypt. He came to bid the prince goodbye.
But wait, swallow. In the square below stands a little match girl. She has let her matches fall into a puddle and they're spoiled. Now she has no money to feed her family. Pluck out my other eye and give it to her.
No, I can't do that. You'd be quite blind then.
But the prince was firm. So the swallow plucked out the prince's other eye. She flew over the little match girl and slipped the jewel into the palm of her hand. The little girl was delighted and ran home laughing. Then the swallow came back to the prince.
You're blind now, so I cannot leave you.
No, dear swallow. You must go away to Egypt.
I want to stay with you always.
The prince could not see any longer, but he wanted to know about his people's suffering. So the swallow became the prince's eyes. He flew into dark lanes and saw the faces of starving children and families. The swallow told the prince what she had seen.
I am covered with fine gold. You must take it off, leaf by leaf, and give it to the poor and the hungry.
Leaf after leaf of the fine gold, the swallow brought to the poor, and the children's faces grew rosier, and they laughed and played games in the street. At last, the prince's statue looked dull and grey. Then the snow and the frost came down. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder, but she would not leave the prince. She loved him too well. Finally, the bird knew she was going to die. She had just enough strength to fly up to the prince's shoulders.
Goodbye, dear prince.
I'm glad that you're going to Egypt, little swallow. You've stayed too long here. Thank you for all your help. I love you.
It is not to Egypt that I'm going, but to the house of death. Goodbye, dear prince.
Then she kissed the happy prince and fell down dead. At that moment, a crack sounded inside the statue. The prince's heart had snapped right in two.
Now let us go through the word meanings. Column, pillar, lead, a dull grey metal. I cannot help but weep. The prince was so moved by the troubles of the people that he became very sad. Rare, very difficult to find. Sapphires, blue gemstones. Sewing, things that she was stitching or mending, that is needlework. Match girl, a girl who sold matches. Firm, it means determined. House of death. The swallow had fallen sick from the cold and was about to die. Students, please keep reading the lesson and learn the word meanings. Thank you for learning along. Thank you and have a great day.